Occupation here is at the heart of the story. It's the elephant in the room. It's about the 3 million Palestinians living in the occupied West Bank under the occupation. And it's not only about them, it's about those not born yet. My name is Rania Zabane, and I'm a producer covering the West Bank from Ramallah. Between us, I fear it'll be more of the same. The vast majority of Palestinians were born and raised under occupation, so it became pretty much part and parcel of their lives to be waiting in long lines at checkpoints, to have Israeli soldiers knocking on their doors. The fact that nothing is predictable is pretty much the only predictable thing living under occupation. Now, Ramallah is a bit different. It's a bit of a bubble. It became a hub for the Palestinian Authority. It's vibrant, it has lots of international organizations. But go a bit outside and reality hits again. You've got refugee camps, you've got checkpoints, you've got walls. I've been covering the West Bank for 20 years. Being a Palestinian before being a journalist has its own set of restrictions. You have the physical challenges that have to do with barriers and movement restrictions. While I can't go to occupied Jerusalem without an Israeli permit, a foreign journalist can. And then there are the unseen barriers. I end up scrutinizing my own work to make sure that people don't think I'm biased. At the end of the day, I'm a journalist. I'm not an activist, nor a parrot. But there are pros for being a Palestinian journalist. You understand the complications, the nuances, and the context of the story. For example, you go to a funeral and you see a mother ululating. That doesn't mean she's happy. The woman just lost a child. But as a Palestinian, you know she's trying to show resilience. There's also a bonus for being a woman journalist because I can have access to places that other people might not necessarily have access to. For example, I can speak to Bedouin women. What I like to do is tell little stories and go into details, like spend some time with those people. Take annexation, for example. It's such an abstract term, but how is it going to affect Karima? How is it going to affect Muhammad living 2 tents down the hill? Permit is another example. The term is so bloodless, and yet people could lose their lives waiting for such a permit. Some stories, you really need an Israeli voice because you need to question the authorities. If Palestinians and international organizations say that home demolitions are collective punishment, you have to have an Israeli voice to respond to people's accusations or concerns or fears.
They didn't just destroy my house, they destroyed my dreams. They destroyed a family and a life.
And while you know that their answer is going to be by the book,
Israeli authorities say some homes built close to the separation fence are a security risk and have to be destroyed.
You have to include it because that's their answer. But sometimes I feel like we really don't have to. We report on a population under occupation, so equating the occupier and the occupied would be inherently biased. There are lots of unsung heroes in this place. The people who live in the Jordan Valley with so little and yet decide they want to stay there. The people who have lost children or have loved ones tortured and choose to remain hopeful. What else motivates me? My kids, I want them to have a life better than mine. To be honest, I try to keep my kids as far away from the conflict as possible and not fill them in on the details of my job. But you can't raise kids in a bubble. They ask, why am I grumpy after covering the arson attack that killed the Dawabsha family in Douma? Or why do I smell like skunk water when covering a protest? And you have to come up with answers that are true, but at the same time, that doesn't teach them to hate. And it's tricky. I think that injustice anywhere should be looked at seriously. Palestinians have been marginalized by the US administration, by the Arab world, and even by their own authority. Most Palestinians would tell you that annexation isn't new. It's been happening for years. The discourse shifted from why the occupation should end to why annexation is bad for Israel. And Palestinians are being sidelined in a story that pertains directly to them. They're sick and tired of waiting. Most people we meet would tell you that they fear that they're losing their most important asset, hope. And that's scary.